This type of Yerushalmi Yoma, and the article edition runs Zav Zaim and Aleph. We're just going to start from the top of the Amud from Rabbi Ba, even though we did it yesterday, which is on the Vilna on Daf Hey Amud Aleph, 4 lines to the bottom. It's about the Kohen Mashuach Melchama, with how many Begadim should be oived inside the base of Mikdash. So the Gemara says, Amrei Ba B'dinu Usha Oived Barba. Really, it should only be served with 4 Begadim. Lama Ein Oived. Why is it not served with 4 Begadim? Shalo, you only Marina Kohen got upon me Oived Barba upon me Mishmona. Shouldn't say the Kohen God sometimes he's Oived with 4 Begadim inside the base of Mikdash, and sometimes out 8 Begadim outside the base of Mikdash when he's Shoel, not when he actually is Oived, when he's Shoel in the Urim B'tulim out in the field in battle. Amrei B'dinu said, how can a person make a mistake? Did this in the avodas v'ifnim? The shayla is b'chutz. People don't make mistakes. People make mistakes from inside to outside. There are 2 different situations. How can people make such a mistake? So Gemara says people do make mistakes. Rabbi Tarfon shall be so. Didn't Rabbi Tarfon, the father of Israel, as the commentator says, b'chokhmah, he was one of the great sages. Lo Torah b'chayetz. He said, "Did not make a mistake like this." Rabbi Tarfon shall be so. Lo Torah, did not make a mistake. Bain. Kiyas Hakol, the Kiyas Korban. He made a mistake, which is not exactly the same thing, but similar to Kiyas Hakel. The Kiyas Korban, he made a similar mistake between the Kiyah for Hakel and the Kiyah of the Korban in the Beis HaMikdash. Now, of course, Hakel was also in the Beis HaMikdash, but the point is, it's different circumstances. The Gemara says, what was the mistake? The time you learned, it says, B'nai Aaron, the Kohanim, should blow the shofar. So the chatzotos, the truma, trumpets. So tamimim v'lo balim mum. So why did it say b'nei Aaron kohanim? It was superfluous. B'nei Aaron obviously kohanim. So that to be tamimim, people kohanim without blemish, and not balim mum. Divrei Akiva. Amar Rabbi Tarfon said, "Akapech is banai." This is Rabbi Tarfon's one of his favorite phrases. He said, may I cut off my children, as the language of an oath. If I not see achi me, that I not see my uncle, my mother's brother, who was lame in one of his legs, and of course that's a mum. Standing in the so he was holding his trumpet and blowing. Bitokea. He was holding his trumpet and blowing. Akiva said, Rabbi, it was addressed to Rabbi Tarfon. Shemel Isa b'shas Hakel. Maybe you saw it during the Hakel. Hakel is not intrinsically an avodah. That's okay. Anybody can blow even a bamum. V'ani omer b'shas hakorban. I'm talking about the chatzos they blew at the time they sacrificed korbanos. Those had to be people who were tamimim, not balimum. Amar Rabbi Tarfon said, "Kapech is banai." Again, the same language of an oath. So it tastes of the small. You did not deviate right or left. And you were to myself, I saw this episode of Shachachti. I forgot. And I did not have an interpretation as to what I saw based on what you just said. How could I have seen a lame Kohen blowing the chatzosos? And you have expounded it, and it made it reconcile it with your Masorah, with the halacha that you brought down. Anybody who separates from you is separating from his life. Okay, the goes on to a new issue. So it says, the pasuk says, the Kohen who's anointed shall do the kapara. So the full pasuk, it's very good to have the Torah showing. It says, so this the Kohen who's anointed and whose hand has been authorized to be a Kohen instead of his father, and puts on the unique garments which are worn for the Avodah Yom Kippur, the holy garments. So we're going to expound this pasuk now. So the what's the this pasuk going to tell us? Because called Parsha, the entire Parsha of the Avodah and Vayikotes Zayin is Amur Ba'aron. It's about Aaron HaKohen. And the Aaron Atzmo. I only know Aaron himself can do the Avodah. I know that another Kohen can do the Avodah of Yom Kippur. Tamulom Hashem Shachoso. Any coin is anointed. Okay. Mashuach b'Shem Mishcha. That's another coin is anointed with the oil of anointment. Umuru begonim minayin. How do you know if? And of course, the Shem Mishcha was put to Geniza. It was put hidden away at the time of Yoshio. How do you know that the subsequent Kohanim Gedolim were just appointed by getting additional clothing, the additional 4 garments minayin? How do you know they can do that? Vayna Tamlar Hashem Aleis Yado. The ones whose hands were authorized, in other words, they were appointed for that position. Rabbi's coin Achar Misnana. How we know that another coin who was appointed, which according to the Korbaneda, references our backup coin. The other coin, which we didn't have a ceremony being Malais Yodo. We appointed him as the backup. So Tamulomar v'chiper kohen. It says additionally the pasuk superfluous of chiper hakohen. I guess we could have just went b'chiper. Why is it right also a kohen? Okay, so by mehu here it says miskaper. The Korbaneda changes this based on parallel sugya in Megillah. But mehu mismaneh. Okay, fine, but so what sets him apart? In other words, the presumably has to be shown out. That's a coin gadol. How does he do that? In this backup coin, he's appointed verbally, even though there's no ceremony giving additional garments, because it doesn't get the additional garments unless he actually comes to serve. Nevertheless, he's appointed and is sanctioned to be the backup coin by a verbal designation. That we can appoint elders, in other words, do smicha, and appoint people to their positions of authority. Because we have it's verbal, it doesn't have to be an actual ceremony in order for that to take place. My cousin, the Alfred Yerushalmi, says the cute chap, but he admits it's not Parshat Pshat that they couldn't be Samech Yadav literally because he was a backup Kohen Gadol. You need that prisha, so nobody's allowed to touch him because they might have been Mesiach Das, they might be Metamim. So therefore, it's Muchrach. It's compelled to say that the verbal conferring of status suffices. But I don't think you have to. He admits that you don't really have to come on to that. It just seems to be simple that. There was no ceremony involved. Okay, so the Gemara says, Amar B'chia Ba'ada. B'chia Ba'ada says Masnisa Amra Kain. This we have a Mishnah which indicates this, where it says when Kavi ben Mahala was arguing on Chachamim, Mishnah themselves Edios. So they said Chazar b'cha reneg on what you're saying. And the 4 things which you argued with Chachamim v'nascha based al Yisrael, making an based on Am Yisrael. So the Korbaneda says Chazar b'cha nasa based mashu sheb'chazar l'chud hu nasa based, just by the do chazar, and we don't even have to do any of the ceremony. You'll automatically become an based. Okay. I just checked see if Chaim had a different pshat, and no, it says the same thing. Exactly the same as Korbaneda. Mach chazar be'amri yehi nasa based. Okay. Minayin says Gemara Minayin shekishein shemaskinin lo koin acher tachtov b'psul. How do we know that? Just like we said, came another Kohen as a backup. Maybe something happened to Kohen Gadol. Kach makdishin mekadishin lo isha. So too, we mekadesh him a woman. He actually does kedushin with a woman. Al tanai, conditionally. Shema davar beishto, because maybe his wife will will meet. Will die. Shneimar says Chiperdo bad Beiso zu ishto Divrei Yehuda, because it says he has to be mechaper for himself and for his wife. Why? Because Beiso, his bayis, his house, Zuishto, that's his wife, Dive Rabbi Huda. So Rabbi Huda says that you have to give him another wife as well, backup wife. Rabbi Yosef said, in Cain, in the davar sof. That's case, there's no end to what we have to be concerned with. Ma in the davar sof doesn't mean in the davar sof. Shema tamus isha zu. Maybe this backup wife will die and another wife will die. So the Gemara says, well, Amrei Mana. Mona said, Adat Makshir Rabbi Huda. Instead of asking this question, Rabbi Huda, back about the backup wife, Kashi saw the Rabbanan. Ask the same question, Rabbanan. Who everybody agrees that there was a backup Kohen, maybe not a backup wife, but it's a backup Kohen. Why not the same kind of question? Maybe we need a backup for the backup because maybe this is some episode of Tuma. We said say that Kerry could mean not just Mikra Lila, an emission, but it could also mean an episode of Tuma. So yesterday, 2 days ago, I remember a day or two ago, that Shem Yar coins Zebi coin Acher, right? So maybe another will happen to the second coin as well. So maybe we need in the different we should have backup, backup. So it's Gemara. Therefore, we should even require one backup. Says Gemara, carry matzui. Carry is prevalent again. That it's likely, it's possible that it's prevalent that that somebody is going to come about carry. So therefore, or have a mikra tuma. So therefore, we did a backup there. Misa lo shliach. The person, the wife should die all of a sudden. Presumably she wasn't ill or some dying. So misa and mitzvah. It's not prevalent. Because of davar matzui, they made the decree and saying which is matzui. Because of davar ena matzui, and they didn't make a decree and saying which is not prevalent. Language of Chaim here is interesting. It says carry matzui b'chada b'tati lo shlicha. Mis lo shlicha fil b'chada. So he refines it a bit. I don't know if you want to come out to it. He says carry that happenstance of tumor will occur to one person. Yes, but even that's not prevalent too. So therefore, one is enough. And misa is not prevalent at all, unless there was obviously some maglaim l'davar. V'ashkechon the Rabbi Yehuda Amar Misa Mitzuya. So the Gemara says here we find the Rabbi Yehuda Misa is Mitzuya, right? It says we make says another Kohen Gadol. Well, that seems to be difficult. The Gemara says. Hada, right? Yet Hadahu the Tama that we learned over there. Okay, over there here means here, of course, that Rabbi Yehuda says we give him another wife because backup wife because wife might die. So we see according to Rabbi Yehuda we're chayshish for Misa. But there, Talmud team we learned over there, and getting maybe get v'nichu zakeinu choleh. If somebody brings a get from a husband who he left, even elderly or sick, nosla b'chezka shukayim, you give the get to his wife, assuming that he's still alive. Talmud Amar ein misa mitzuya. They say death is not prevalent. We as a chezkas chayim, we assume he's alive, and we give the get. V'kot Amar misa mitzuya. And here you say misa is mitzuya. Here you say that we are chayshish misa. Evidently there, so it doesn't say explicitly Rabbi Yehuda, but Rabbi Yehuda doesn't argue, right? So says Gemara, the difference is Tama b'yachid kam b'tzibur. There it's an individual, and here it's for the tzibur. So therefore, we're more machmir when it comes to the tzibur. Especially since it's the Tar of Yom Kippur, the Kapar of Yom Kippur of the Tzibur. So therefore, we have it's like Mila for this Kapar that we acquire the backup. It's a special level of severity, stringency by the Tzibur. So it says Gemara, the Gemara says, well, we find that Rabbi Yehuda is even machmir by an individual. The Tani Rabbi Yehuda said we had this back in Masechah Shkolim. Lo haya shofar shekin Yerushalayim. There was no shofar of kinei chayva in Yerushalayim. There was no pushka for a ken which had to be brought by a woman who's required to bring a set of birds, one of which would be an ola, one of which is chatas, such as a zova yoledes, in the anti-roivus, because we're afraid that there'll be a mixture. Shema tomus echad mehem, maybe one of the women who had put money in the pushka would die. And there'd be money of chatos mesa. Sorry, mechatos mesa. There would be money of a chatos of a person who died in, mixed up with a carbon. And so we're afraid. We see that Rabbi Yehuda was cheshish for misa, even for an individual. So Gemara doesn't answer that question, leaves it difficult. Obviously, you can make the different chilukim that. Oh, so that was in the base hamikdash. It was if it's a tzibur because there are many korbanos in there, but in any event, the Gemara doesn't address it at this point. Okay, but the Gemara does say before we said makdishin lo isha acheres, right? But that's not Lashon Rabbi Yehuda. Lashon Rabbi Yehuda is maskin lo isha acheres. So it sounds like the kedusha did not take place before Yom Kippur. So the Gemara asks, bikash me'esmo, let the kedushin take place before Yom Kippur, because it's not supposed to do kiddushin on Yom Kippur itself, right? On Shabbos Yontif. So Kohen goes now to be mechaper for two batim. You can't have two wives. Only one wife. Rav Gamliel Rabbi Yuni. Bo kumi Rabbi Moni. That's Rabbi Moni. Lonim said Kikonik Shabbos. Okay, so that's okay, but that's a problem because then you're doing Kiddush on Shabbos because the Kiddush is going to take place on Yom Kippur. So this is a shvus. It's only Rabbanan not to get married on Shabbos Yontif. So this is mati in the Beis Hamikdash, right? So it's not literally in the Beis Hamikdash for the purpose of the avodah. They would have been matir to do this kinyan on Shabbos on Yom Kippur. You know, if this in this remote event, the Gemara says, "Amray Mona Adamras teach us Elin the Kansin Armelin, those who marry widows. But Ikar Kinyan is the yichud, the tzarich Korban says Hanakatzar the Osin Shlosim Nashim Amonas Erev Shabbos. They can marry a widow. Tzarich Katzim Adiyam Tainu Tzarich Yachedim Achar Chuba Korban Shabbos. Yichud Zek Kohen Esa. The yichud is kohen. The chuppah is not really kohen. They have the yichud. The yachedim Oiv Lenim Shabbos to here it says loyak kohen kinyan. That's a mistake. It should be hoyak kohen kinyan. One of the art Korban Eda changes that one. I mean, the article changes it. So it's interesting. It doesn't change the Korban Eda, but the Pnei Moshe does change it. Because Pnei Moshe says something similar there. He changes it. It says, he says, Pnei Moshe says, Fishamana ain't l'chuppah, she had koina osel l'chol davar. It's because Tzilasim, I say, dad doesn't work. The chuppah doesn't work to do the final kinyan, which a husband then becomes what's the word? It requires the right to her lost the object she finds and her handiwork. She only is only required bia. Here it says Oshi Siachim Yom, or you could before during the daytime Kohen Shabbos. So there he changes O to Tzarich. But that's not true. It's not Tzarich. It's you don't have to have bia. You just have to have yichud or roy bia mibod yom. So I'm not sure why he bothers changing there, because you're talking about yichud as opposed to chuppah, right? So there, bia. Oh, she's yachinimah means yichud roy bia, but there he does. The article does change it to bia shetzarich she's yachinimah. Okay, so I'm not sure why he. I'm not sure why he bothers changing it there, but okay, he does. Regardless, what the Gemara is saying is that since by the chuppah is insufficient to make the final kinyan, and the final kinyan is made by yichud or bia, so therefore you may have to make sure by Hamana that you're making the kaj and erev Shabbos in the afternoon, that the yichud takes place before Shabbos, not just the chuppah. Okay, halacha base kol shivas yamim, all 7 days. The Kohen Gadol was in the state of separation. Who's Zorgas Adam, he does his weakest of Dam. It says the Kormeir Shil to meet him. So he'll become rogil to the custom doing the avodah. Umaktios akteres, he brings akteres. Umeitibus aneros, he fixes the neros to remove the ashes and the old wicks. Umaktios arosh vesar aglaim, and he puts on the mizbeach the head and the legs, the murim. V'shar kol yom, any other day of the year, if he wants to do the avodah and take precedence over other kohanim, he's allowed to. The Kohen Gadol has the prerogative to be the first, in other words, to take precedence in doing the akrava, in doing the avodah, and also in taking a portion, taking the best portion has precedence of that as well. Okay, so says Gemara, the Eino Tamei Yishum Azayasa is not Tamei because of Azayah, because we're maz on him every day from all the Ephah part which is there. And need to have Harev Shemesh before they do the avodah. So I can do the avodah every day. From the Meichatos on him every day. He did every time Mishum Haziyaso. I'm Rabbi Yisrael Beribun. Mishem Makar Korbanos. First he would do the avodah, and then they would do the Hazor, and then he would be Tomei for the rest of the day, and then he could go to mikveh, and then Harev Shemesh, and then the next morning he would do it over again. Okay, so the end of the Mishnah says, "Kohen Gadol Makri Barosh v'Notel Chelik Barosh." He sacrifices. He takes precedence. He wants to sacrifice, or if he wants to take a portion. Hey Chavir, how does it work? Or is that shali? There's a hide. He can take it's a hide, even though there's only one hide. He takes the entire hide. Chala achas shmei lechem, takes one chala out of it to a lechem, which are brought on Shavuos. Sheish chalosim lechem, but he can take 6 of the chalos lechem, take 6 of the 12, which are brought every Shabbos. So the one has chachon nasib kula. Here, by the hide, it says it takes the entire hide. Here, it only takes half of the chalos lechaponim. So Gemara says, "Kal karban yochid, kal karban tzibur." If it's a carbon of an individual, he can take the entire hide, which is a portion of the quantum. He can lay claim to it. Of a kal karban tzibur, he can only take half of it. So. Tani Rebbe Omer, it says Omer Nishleito Ela Mechta. He should only take half of it. Hey Chavida, what does it mean? Hayasham Orechaz is one hide, but I mean not the school. Everyone says the Kohen Gadol takes all of it. Rebbe Omer, Rebbe says no. Omer Nishleito Ela Mechta. He should only take half. Hayasham Arba Chamisha Oris, where there are 4 or 5 hides. And I mean not the Echad. Also, he takes one. In this case, it's the machmir the Kohen Gadol. Going to take one. Rabbi Meir, Nino tel mechza. I say in this case also he takes half of the hides. He's making the Kohen Gadol in this case. My time, the Rabbi. What's Rebbe's source for this statement of half? That's always simply half. Says Vano Seretz mina mincha la'aron ubanov. So it says whatever's left of mincha goes to Aaron and his kids. Don't we know Aaron is included in his kids? In other words, just say the Aaron. What do you have to say? Aaron ubanov. And banav yatzin palga. This is each one takes half. Aaron takes half, and his children take half. Aaron. As shokol keneged bottom, each one takes half. Okay, we're going to bring a practical application of this principle, but right now that's already way on to Chesam Nav, so we'll stop here for today.